If evolution rewards reproduction, then homosexuality shouldn't still exist. At least, that's what millions of people assume. It feels like one of those questions with an obvious answer. It isn't, because same-sex attraction has been documented in every recorded human society. Similar behaviors have also been observed across hundreds of animal species. For more than a century, evolutionary biologists have tried to explain why. Not whether it exists, why it keeps existing. That small difference transforms a cultural debate into one of evolution's most enduring puzzles. If natural selection is supposed to favor reproduction, why doesn't the evidence behave the way we expect? Part of the confusion comes from treating evolution like a designer. We picture it building life the way an architect designs a house. Deliberate, efficient, always improving. Nature works very differently. Take the human eye. It's one of the most remarkable organs evolution has produced. Yet every one of us carries a blind spot because the nerves sit in front of the retina instead of behind it. An engineer would probably redesign it. Evolution never did. Not because it couldn't, because evolution doesn't care about perfection. Only whether something works well enough to survive another generation. That raises an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe we've been asking the wrong kind of question from the very beginning. The puzzle becomes much harder to dismiss once humans are no longer the only example. If same-sex attraction were uniquely human, culture alone might seem like a satisfying explanation. But nature keeps interrupting that idea, again, and again, and again. Researchers have documented same-sex sexual behavior in an extraordinary range of animals, from dolphins and bonobos to birds, reptiles, fish, and insects. Male bottlenose dolphins form long-lasting same-sex partnerships. Female Japanese macaques sometimes establish sexual relationships with one another. Male bonobos use sexual behavior to strengthen social bonds and reduce conflict within their groups. Then comes an important distinction. Does this mean those animals are gay in the same sense that humans are? Not necessarily. Scientists distinguish between same-sex sexual behavior and sexual orientation. In humans, orientation describes enduring patterns of attraction. In animals, researchers can observe behavior, but they usually cannot measure internal attraction the same way. The distinction matters. Yet one observation refuses to disappear. Nature keeps returning to the same pattern. Across different species, across different environments, across millions of years. If evolution relentlessly erased every trait that didn't maximize direct reproduction, why does this pattern keep showing up? For decades, researchers chased what sounded like the perfect ending. Find the gene. Explain the mystery. Case closed. Reality had other plans. The largest genetic studies ever conducted found no single gay gene. Instead, they uncovered thousands of tiny genetic influences, each contributing only a small amount, alongside developmental and environmental factors. It was like searching for one missing puzzle piece, only to discover the picture was made from thousands of fragments, each almost too small to notice on its own. Ironically, solving one mystery only deepened another. If no single gene explains it, how has this pattern remained so persistent throughout human history? Scientists responded the only way they could. They started treating evolution like a detective story. Every hypothesis became a suspect. The first suspect arrived with an unexpected twist. What if some genetic variants that reduce reproduction in certain men also increase reproduction somewhere else, perhaps in female relatives? If that happened, those variants wouldn't disappear. They would simply find another path into the next generation. Several studies have reported patterns consistent with this idea. Others have not found the same results. It's an intriguing possibility, but the evidence remains debated. Then another suspect stepped forward. What if passing on genes isn't always about having children yourself? Some animals increase the survival of close relatives instead. Because relatives share many of the same genes, helping a sibling raise children can still contribute to the spread of shared genetic material. It's a beautifully elegant idea, perhaps a little too elegant. When scientists searched for strong evidence that this fully explains human sexual orientation, the results became far less convincing. The theory remained. The mystery did too. Then came perhaps the most surprising possibility of all. Genes rarely perform just one job. A single genetic variant can influence several completely different traits at once. Change one thread, and an entire section of the tapestry shifts with it. Removing that variant might solve one problem while quietly creating several others. Evolution rarely starts from scratch, keeps modifying what already exists, even when the result is imperfect. At this point, something unexpected happens. The mystery quietly changes shape. It stops being a question about homosexuality. It becomes a question about how evolution actually works. The deeper researchers looked, the less biology resembled a perfectly organized machine. Instead, it looked like an endless series of compromises. And biology has never been bothered by that. Humans are. Nature has been making strange compromises for millions of years. The genetic variant responsible for sickle cell disease can also protect against severe malaria when inherited differently. The appendix, once dismissed as useless, may contribute to immune function. Even the human spine tells the same story. It allows us to walk upright, yet it also leaves millions of people with chronic back pain. Evolution doesn't produce flawless designs, patches old ones, again and again, and somehow those imperfect solutions are often good enough. That changes the original question in a profound way. Why didn't evolution remove homosexuality? Hidden inside that sentence is an assumption that evolution makes decisions, that it notices inefficient traits, that it actively removes them. But evolution does none of those things. It has no intention, no destination. For millions of years, evolution has seemed almost unstoppable, keeps what works, and slowly, it lets everything else disappear. At least, that's the story we've all come to believe. But hidden inside biology is a contradiction so strange that scientists have spent decades trying to untangle it. A pattern linked to lower direct reproduction that refuses to vanish. Not for centuries, not for millennia. It appears again and again, not only in humans, across the animal kingdom. If evolution is really as relentless as we think, what are we missing? The mystery feels almost unfair. Darwin showed that traits helping reproduction tend to spread through populations. Everything else should slowly become rarer. So why does this pattern keep returning? Generation after generation after generation. At first, the answer seems obvious. Maybe evolution slipped. Maybe this is the exception that proves the rule. But evolution doesn't slip, which leaves only one unsettling possibility. The flaw isn't in evolution. It's in the story we've been telling ourselves about how evolution works. Then came the first clue, and it made the mystery even larger. Anthropologists found evidence of same-sex relationships in societies separated by continents and thousands of years. Then biologists began reporting something even more unexpected. The same pattern appeared throughout the animal kingdom. Penguins, bonobos, dolphins, rams, swans. The list kept growing. These animals weren't copying human culture. They weren't influenced by history. Whatever connected them had to be far older than civilization itself. The mystery had escaped humanity. Now it belonged to biology. The next clue looked completely unrelated. Ants. Entire colonies depend on workers that never reproduce. If evolution only rewarded individuals who had offspring, those colonies shouldn't function. Yet they thrive. Then another surprise. Human grandmothers. Long after they stop having children, many continue helping grandchildren survive and flourish. Once again, direct reproduction wasn't telling the whole story. Two completely different mysteries, pointing toward the same hidden rule. If evolution wasn't maximizing reproduction for every individual, what exactly was it preserving? Scientists approached the puzzle from every direction. Some wondered whether helping relatives could quietly keep shared genes alive. Others looked for genetic trade-offs. Could a genetic variant lower reproductive success in one situation, while increasing it somewhere else? One influential idea suggested that genetic factors associated with male homosexuality might also increase fertility in female relatives. Some studies supported that possibility. Others found weaker or conflicting evidence. The investigation continued. Then genetics entered the picture. Researchers searched for a single answer, a single gene, a single switch. They never found one. Instead, large genetic studies revealed something far more intricate. Many genetic variants, each contributing only a small amount, none acting alone. So scientists looked elsewhere. Prenatal development, hormonal environments before birth, interactions between biology and development. Again, each clue explained part of the mystery, and each left another piece untouched. The closer researchers came, the larger the puzzle became. Then everything changed. Not because of a new discovery, because of a new question. Without realizing it, we'd been treating evolution like an engineer, as if it had a blueprint, a destination, a perfect design it was trying to build. But evolution has none of those things. No intention, no plan, no final version of life waiting at the end. It doesn't chase perfection. It simply preserves whatever continues moving through generations. Suddenly, every clue you've seen begins to fit together. The original question now looks different. Why didn't evolution remove homosexuality? Science doesn't offer one universally accepted answer. Instead, it offers something more honest. Several evidence-based hypotheses, each explaining part of the picture, none explaining everything. Sexual orientation appears to emerge from a complex interaction of genetic, developmental, and biological factors. Researchers continue testing those ideas today, not because evolution has failed to explain the mystery, but because biology is rarely built around simple answers. At the beginning, this looked like a contradiction, a challenge to Darwin's theory, a crack in evolution itself. But step by step, the contradiction moved. It wasn't hiding inside evolution. It was hiding inside our assumptions. We imagined evolution as a force obsessed with making every individual reproduce as much as possible. Reality is stranger. Evolution doesn't promise perfection. It doesn't optimize every characteristic in every organism. It works through inheritance, variation, trade-offs, changing environments, and immense stretches of time. Sometimes the patterns it leaves behind make immediate sense. Sometimes they don't. And sometimes, the greatest mystery isn't why a trait persists. It's why we expected nature to follow rules it never wrote in the first place. Once you see that, you don't just look at this question differently. You begin looking at evolution itself through entirely new eyes.